Okay, hi everyone. This is the very first video that I will be giving you. Yeah, this video will be about what to expect from the different kind of courses, what to expect from the videos themselves, like what will I cover, and I will just give you some tips and recommendations on how to combine your studies and combine that with your work, with your social life. I'm just gonna give you some tips on that, and hopefully it will help you as much as helps me. So let's see if it works. First video, of course. There. So some of the topics that I will be discussing are, you can see over here. Of course, these are not the only ones. It always depends on the assignments that you have, or the courses that you have, or well, it depends on many things. Even if there are things that I haven't covered and that you want me to cover, you can always just send me a message, and I will try to cover it as soon as possible. So here you can see some of the topics that I will cover, like combined studies in your work, in your life. The APA rules, like what are they, how to apply those, how to find and use sources, how to write coherently and cohesively, I will go in depth on that, how to plan a paper, how to prepare for that, some study techniques that help for me, how to work together in a group, data collection, etc., etc. There are many, many more. Yeah, so I hope it will be sufficient enough for you to have a successful first year. So, what to expect from the current courses? Now, of course, you already know what you're having at the moment. So, you have general education, pupils learning, English, and your teaching experience at one point. Yeah, so with general education, it can go a great variety of ways. It actually also depends per year a little bit on what there will be a bigger focus on. From my experience, I can say that there's a very big focus on how to interpret like the Danish and international ways of teaching. So in other words, it kind of increases your intercultural competence, you could say, by seeing different school systems from different perspectives and some philosophy in there as well. So, like, what is most important regarding the studies? What is the philosophy behind certain ways of teaching? So, for example, you have a democratic way of teaching. Like, how what is the thought behind that? Also, yeah, like this goes also a bit in depth on society, a bit of history. So it's very broad in a way, but still very useful. Pupils learning, yeah, this is basically the psychology behind all the learning. Like, what kind of theories do actually apply to what setting? So, for example, you have like cognitive theories that really go in depth on the way people are learning inside their heads, basically. So, like repetition or like new data. How do people sort of integrate that? That's one theory. One other theory, like social theories, for example, really focus on that people really flourish when they work together or when they have the right environment that they learn in. So yeah, so it's really interesting to learn different kind of theories, different kind of perspectives on how students learn. And yeah, I think it's a great course to start off with, because it really gives you the base for every paper. Because almost always you have to integrate one of these theories in your papers. So pay attention there. English, well, it's very interesting because it doesn't only go in depth on the English language itself, like the terminology behind certain words and or syntax, for example, that kind of thing. But it really also focuses on how to teach English in an intercultural setting. So you not only learn about the English language itself, but also like how do we teach that, like what works best in what kind of setting. So like, you know, because when you're going to teach on an international school, you will always encounter students with different backgrounds, and how to teach those students, how to include them in the class as much as possible. And yeah, so like there's a lot of theory, and it can be also very useful as well, especially because you're gonna have English throughout the year and a bit next year as well. So yeah, so pay attention from the start, because otherwise you might encounter some problems later on. And then, of course, the teaching experience. Yeah, like this is basically just observing and participating a bit. And don't forget to collect some data, or in other words, like some write down some observations or collect products from the students, because you will use them not only for your teaching experience paper, but also for a paper for English. So please, 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 because many people kind of forgot to do that because it's so overwhelming, but please collect data when you're there. So how to prepare? Well, with general education, it is okay to be a bit skeptical about things, because when you have different kinds of streams within the philosophy setting, then it is good to think through. If you take things for granted, you might encounter problems with that because you just assume that one theory is the truth, but a theory is always a theory, so it is good to sort of be critical on that and maybe even come up with your own ideas. And with pupils learning, well, there are, like I mentioned, a lot of psychological theories, and I really recommend paying attention there, because the theories that you will be learning there, you will be using in almost every single course and almost every single paper, or at least describe them a little bit. So just read theory, or read the literature beforehand. It also counts for general education. And for the course of English, there is a lot of theory, and sometimes some articles might be a bit dry, a bit difficult to get through. But but during the classes, they're all, everyone's going, the teaching will be very thorough. So I really recommend preparing for those classes and really read the literature well enough. Of course, you could sometimes not have time for that, but at least get an idea of what the literature is about, because otherwise you might be encountering some difficulties during the classes. Then, teaching experience, like I mentioned before, the data collection is essential there, but the main purpose, of course, is to sort of be exposed to teaching in general. So priority is for you to just observe, participate, get some experience there, try to do as much as possible, and keep the data collection in mind. But yeah, it's fun. It's my first teaching experience was really, really fun. So I hope it will be for you as well, probably. How to prepare for classes? Yeah, so like I mentioned, always read the literature, or at least have a glimpse or just a quick look at what the literature is about. Like I say here as well, scan at least the titles and the subtitles. But whenever you can, of course, read the whole literature, read the articles, because every single class, almost all classes will go in depth on them. So it is important to read them through. And of course, don't neglect your studies. So not only for yourself, because it is important to just know what the classes are about, and when you stop reading the literature from the start, or you forgot to do it a few times, then later on it might be difficult for you because you don't have the proper background to learn new theory or new kind of ideas. So please keep track on everything that you have to do. And also more for others, if there are many group assignments, and if you just don't know what it is about, it might cause a lot of problems with also with your group, because then you can't really participate properly enough. And so don't neglect your studies, both for you but also for others. So tips on how to combine studies and social life and work. For me, throughout the years, I just used little kind of tricks. And one thing is just to plan things ahead. Like I use a lot of Google Calendar, and I really schedule whenever I do something, and that really works. And next to that, I also work with a checklist where I just write down all the small things that I need to do. And as a matter of fact, it's actually really fulfilling. If you have a full list at the start and at the end of the day it's all gone, then you can properly relax because you have nothing on your mind anymore. But then again, the downfall of that is that you plan too much. So do know what your maximum, your max is, in other words. So what can you do on the day? Just be sure that you don't plan too much. Stick to your schedule. Of course, a bit of discipline is required. Everyone encounters a little bit of problems with that. Sometimes you might feel a bit tired, or you might have had a party the day before. Then then it might be better to already calculate that, or like expect that you might have extra work. Do that a bit before the party so you can relax the day after. So yeah, in other words, work ahead whenever possible. And well, I live in Roskilde, but it also counts for people from Copenhagen or anyone who has to travel by train. Really use the train as your office, because it can save you a lot of time, and it's just also very nice to when you go back home, that you already did some of your work, that you can relax more even at home. But also, like when you go towards school, like when you go to your classes, then it's, for especially now that there's a lot of work on the tracks, that you can just read through your literature and then just be properly prepared for your classes. And so yeah, I can recommend that like big time. Yeah, well, of course, this is part of my first online seminar. So usually I would ask you what your experiences are with coping with stress. But for me, what works well is to work ahead. So like whenever you like, of course, you probably had some experiences with that as well, that the night before the deadline, you have to do a lot. This can not only cause a lot of stress, but it can also impact the quality of your paper. Because when you're not rested enough, when you're stressed out, you tend to make mistakes. And also, if you finish your paper early, you can have some extra time to read it through a few days later when you're, just to scan it from a more neutral perspective. We'll go in depth on that another time. But yeah, work ahead. Exercise and eat healthy. What works for me is to just, decrease your cortisol levels, in other words, just to exercise whenever possible. It relaxes you, it cleans the mind a bit, especially with running. That's what I have. And eat healthy. Don't drink too much coffee, because then you can get these energy roller coaster kind of energy things, whatever they're called. Get enough sleep. Especially like that's also a good way of learning. Like if you have proper enough sleep, then you integrate everything that you learned. But it also counts for naps. Like if you, for example, really had to study for or like when you really want to learn something properly, I really recommend reading it through the afternoon, sleeping, because basically sleep is just a reintegration of everything that you learned, reactivation, and basically it integrates what you have learned better. And then if you read it again after your nap and then sleep again, then it really increases the chances of that you will remember it on the long term. So that's a tip for me. For some, not for me. Like to meditate, mindfulness, things like that. Just be calm, do some breathing exercises. This really depends on person. I have a few friends who really calm down when they meditate, when they really find moments that they can just rest their minds, in other words. For me, exercise works best, but for others, just some meditation here and there could really be beneficial. And write things down, like I mentioned. So the checklist, also small things. When you're really stressed out or maybe a bit down, make a small list of small things you can do, like clean your room, vacuum. It seems sort of counterintuitive to do a lot of things when you don't have motivation, but for me it really works well to just do small things because it just gives you a good feeling. That's the first video. 14 minutes long. It's a bit long. Hope it's not too long. I'll try to shorten it down the next times. Hope it worked out well, and hope that it will be beneficial for you. And more videos coming up, so stay tuned. Okay, thank you very much. Bye bye.